Good morning, it's Keen again. So, I was thinking to myself, Silksong comes out on Thursday morning, and I would really like to get an upload in before that happens, and I think the world goes into a collective coma about that, given that I'm part of that. And I was thinking about, what can I upload tomorrow before that ends up happening? Then I get off of work, I had a closing shift, I look at my phone, I get pinged with patch notes, I'm just like, what are we talking about? Is it Mario Kart or something? And no. Splatoon 3 version 10.1.0, which is our first balance patch ever since the addition of third kits into the game, so that's a pretty big deal. So basically this video I'm going to review over it, kind of give my thoughts, opinions, all that, because I think it's a good time to, and it's a pretty exciting thing, honestly. I wasn't expecting a patch, literally today. I'll have this go up in the morning and then the patch will be the night of, so that's pretty exciting. Anyways, let's get into it. Subscribe if you haven't already. And here we go. So Splash-O-Matic, we got increased the speed of shots by approximately 3%, extended the flight distance, which is basically bullet velocity and range by 3%. Tiny buff, but they've been doing this to a lot of the shorter range shooters, so fair enough with Splash. They did say they decreased the radius inked by 3%, so it paints slightly less in exchange for that additional range, which is fine. That's cool. I've always been of the opinion that Vanilla Splash, the Burst Bomb Crab one, is about as cool as a shooter can get as a top tier in this game, after a bunch of the crab nerfs, because it was really overtuned at launch. But nowadays, it's my favorite shooter. I play it a ton. I think it's really fun, because it has that mix of shooter frame data, but then perfect accuracy. Kind of gives you those laser gun moments. You can burst bomb the crossfire with teammates, get kills from really far ranges. Crab just has a high ceiling in general. It's just a really well-rounded kid, one of my favorite top tiers on this game, so I'm cool with this. This is fine by me. What I'm not fine by is 52 Gal, because they basically kind of did a sort of rework on it, which is a little bit weird, where it says increase the speed of shots by 39% without changing the range. So the bullet velocity got increased massively, and Gal's identifying thing is the fact it's a two-shot weapon, so increasing the bullet velocity is pretty obnoxious. But as a trade-off for that massive buff, they made it so it's 15% more ink hungry. Back in Splatoon 2, when K-Gal was the thing, I really wanted an ink efficiency nerf, that never happened. I know that Gal doesn't see a lot of solo queue success, at least not to the ridiculous degree it did in the end of Splatoon 2. But I don't think it's a particularly fun weapon to fight, so honestly I'm not really feeling the massive bullet velocity buff on this one. I'm a bit skeptical on this. And the devs kind of give a little bit of reasoning toward the end of it. I'll talk about it a little bit more there, but yeah, I'm good with this change, not so good with this change. Next change I love though, 3 of them, all with the normal Brella, where it says expanded the inking on the point of impact for shots. So basically when you hit the ground or hit a wall or just in general it'll paint more, and it says expanded the width of painting or inking for spray droplets created by shots. So in general it's going to paint a lot more if it hits the surface, hits a wall, whatever, it should just paint more. And they adjusted how shots spread out, make it so that shots scatter in a wider area than previously. Basically, it should paint a lot more, and it'll paint a lot more because of another change later. I've always been of the opinion Brella is really weak in this game currently, and given that Recycled exists, it has 90 damage, and Brella's 81 damage, I always said they had to differentiate them somehow. So I think massively buffing Brella's paint is really good, because it did have really high paint output early on in Splatoon 2 before a bunch of paint nerfs and ink efficiency nerfs. So it's kind of funny how we come full circle. Back in Splatoon 2, when this weapon first dropped, it had kind of horrible parameters about shield that got buffed very soon after, but it had 20 shots in an ink tank by default, assuming you're not opening shield. And in this game, or I think after all of the nerfs in S2, I think it was down to 15 by default. And then in this game, they buffed the ink efficiency back up, not to 20, it's 18 currently, but I think even a sub of main save is 19 shots, so it's pretty it seems like the parameters are pretty close to where Brella was before it got super nerfed, so that's cool to see. I'll be interested in that. I do think this weapon is dying for a third kit really badly, so if you get more of those at some point, I think Brella, with this kind of change, is kind of, desperately, a third kit could do a lot for this. Nova, one of the worst weapons in the game, reduces scatter shots when firing the gun by 18%. I mean, it's cool, it's more accurate, that's nice I guess, because it's basically longer range arrow spray in its current state, so more accuracy is good. So let's see usage, I don't think so, especially given you super buff Brella. I think when it comes to jetpack output, it's pretty much ballpoint the new bow and Brella are like the 3 like super jetpack spammy weapons. I don't think there's a reason to pick Nova still, but I mean, if you're gonna give it a quality of life, sure, I'm not against it, that's fine. Flashbuster is a bad weapon that destroys low elo, but even then, I think Luna's a significantly better weapon, so buffing Clash's paint by 13% when it is like objectively one of the worst painters in the entire game is cool. Will it see usage? No. It has the cheapest chump in the game at 170 and paint slightly better for it now, I guess. I mean, okay, in fairness, like, Clash does suck, but in its current state, you know, before this patch, I think you need to, like, shoot twice forward to, like, make a straight line of paint. Otherwise, if you shoot once with this weapon, there's, like, a weird, like, splotch in between, like, where you're standing and, like, the blast at the end of your range. Maybe it'll help with that. I kind of doubt it. You probably still need to shoot twice to move, but I mean, quality of life for bad weapon. Can't complain. Douser, however, got a change where the bullet velocity when standing was buffed by 33%, and the bullet velocity when turret rolling is 38%, which is pretty crazy. This weapon has range, and it has... I was gonna name another upside, Nick. That's why this weapon has like decent range. It's not quite Jet Squelcher tier, but the problem is the damage is horrible and the bullet velocity wasn't great, so massively increasing the bullet velocity is a pretty decent thing. I don't think we'll necessarily see usage, but I think you could get away with playing custom Douser specifically a bit better without it being as miserable, and maybe you can combo a bit better. Honestly, my Salmon Run pilled brain is basically thinking like, oh look, Douser is like more playable in that mode, that's cool. It's neat, fine, it's a good change. Because if you're not going to buff the damage, then, you know, I'll take bullet velocity, can't complain. What I will take, though, is Recycled Brella, where they reduce the damage to the canopy by 33% before it launches. That's when it has 100 HP, and then 20% reduction by everything after you launch it. That's when it's 200 HP. This is actually really big. I'm going to need to like test and lab out a bunch of numbers. You can go onto sendo.inc and kind of mess around with like damage values, like how many hits does it take to break Recycled Shield. The one thing of note, unless I'm like sucky at math, which is not impossible because it's late at night when I'm doing this, but Slosher currently one-shots the Recycled Shield. I think with this damage reduction specifically, it's a 2-shot on shield now, and that's just like one example. I think Wiper Horizontal currently one-shots Recycled Shield. It might be 2 if the math is correct. Obviously stuff like Stamper will still shred you at 1. I think if you do the math on that, it still applies. So, you know, it's not going to instantly turn it into like some 500 HP Brella shield type of thing, but like this legitimately changes a lot of interactions, and low key, I don't even think Recycled was that bad because it has like the super giga paint and the fast shield regen and the high damage that Brella used to have. So like low key, it's like not actually that bad, but I like complaining that it's bad because that's like the propaganda on this channel, is that Brella suck. Even though low key Recycled might actually be like mid-tier, but you didn't hear that from me. I'm gonna keep calling it bad until I start doing stuff with it. Yeah, that's pretty good. Like genuinely, I'm gonna play a lot more Recycled. I'm very fascinated by that. In terms of special changes, we got 3. I think the last one's the most interesting. First one's Quality of Life for Zipcaster, where they expanded the rate or area of the explosion at the landing point that deals 45 by 9%. Basically, there's a lot of hitboxes if you land directly on top of someone at Okos. There's like that 35 hit, which is like the weak hit, and 45 I think is like the middling hit. They basically made the middling hit bigger, so it's easier to combo and like do damage. That's pretty cool. Nice quality of life. You can probably combo better with Stamper, potentially Luna. I hate that gun with Zipcaster. I still think it's not great, but you know, it's a buff. It's cool. Pretty deep for Octobrush as well. There's not many Zip weapons, but I think Stamper, Octobrush, and Luna like this one specifically. At least those come to mind. Inkvac is, I wouldn't say a rework, but like kind of small interaction change where it increases the amount of opponent ink that can be sucked up. Basically, Inkvac works on like sort of like an HP system. I forget what it is currently because I'm not exactly an Inkvac professional. But basically that threshold is higher, and on top of that, the radius of the explosion you do when you shoot it back out is 10% bigger when sucked up to the maximum. So that's going to be really obnoxious on single zone maps, stuff like Hagglefish. It'll basically probably consistently insta-cap if you fill up the vac to its final state. So I mean, that's like neat. Still not a huge fan of Inkvac from a design space, but I mean, it's better at what it does now. It absorbs more, and it counterattacks with the big explosion better, and maybe you'll get some more kills with it, because 10% is actually pretty decent, because that's a big hitbox when it's at maximum. That's neat. What I think is more interesting is Inkstorm, because they just straight up increase the radius, like the circle of it, by 18%. So A, this paints more. B, this covers more space with, you know, the active damage over time hitbox. And yeah, that's actually really interesting, because I think on some maps expanding the radius will make it like way more effective at sort of pressuring a space. Keep in mind, Inkstorm did get that buff a while ago, like a year ago, where if you're standing in it and you're not at full HP and it's like your team's rain, it'll heal you. So I think that's really interesting. And if anything, this just like, I really want that third spot Bella with rain. Like, come on. The paint buff on Brella, the radius expansion on the, like, just make a third spot Brella with rain and like a good like sub. It's right there. Just do it. Just appeal to the Splatoon 2 Brella players, parentheses me. Come on, you know you want to. Alternatively, I wouldn't have hated Undercover with Rain. I wanted that for a while, but we already got a third kit on that, so that dream is dead. And my new dreams and hopes will be within Recycled with Rain if they make a third, or Reg Brella with Rain. Though I think Reg Brella synergizes better for the higher shield HP, but honestly, low-key Recycle might be kind of flames this patch, so either one would be kind of neat. Because Brella's kind of relegated to Jetpack and Strike bots, so that's not very fun. And yeah, they have a bunch of special cost changes to lightning around this, because I don't want to talk about all of them in depth. Fizzy Carbon being cheaper, cool. Chump is like low tier special. Synergizes with Carbon though, so slightly cheaper, cool. Big Swig kind of, but that weapon sucks. Express also kind of sucks. I mean, that's cool. I mean, Express is a rain weapon, so this is neat. Comet's Octobrush, cheaper. You know, fair enough, it's a Kraken, but honestly, 200 is like kind of expensive. It has a bomb, but an Octobrush doesn't paint that much. Bamboo Mach 2 is the Chump one, right? I had to think about that. Again, Chump not too strong, fine. Custom Explode, cheaper Splashdown, pretty cool, I'll take that. Not cheaper Splash. That's the Splashdown one, no. Yes, I'm forgetting the not numbers. I think that's the Splashdown one, no? Like 47 is like the silver one. Is it 47? I'm like overthinking this. Yeah, I think that's the Splashdown one. I think that's cheaper. Yeah. Okay. That's cool. Custom Squelchy got that one nerf from Turf War undone. That's neat. That's like the only way they'll buff Squelchy ever, I swear. Even though I just want tiny quality of life. I'm not asking for like a 33%, you know, bullet velocity buff. I'm just like 8% or something I would take for Squelchy. Yeah, they really buffed all the Chump guns. They know if Chump sucks. That's crazy. 180 on 10. That's cool. This is a Zuka paintbrush. 190 so I get 180 is like cheap and it can build it, but like paintbrush wasn't exactly making waves. Maybe it's like a low elo destroyer or something. I never see this gun. Mini being 200 is fine. Everyone's complaining about this, and like Mini paint so much. I think this is like natural. Rella, they jumped up by 10, but again they gave it a massive paint buff this patch. But I think the bigger thing is they jumped 20 points immediately on the Jetpack Brella. Like that better be a damn good paint buff to be plus 20 off their rip. Like I can understand 10. Like damn, you really don't want like another pack spam weapon, huh? Kind of wild. I really need to see how well Brella paints, because like I'm sure this like cost is justified. It's just like if you want Brella to see usage, you need to like not make it a special spammer inherently, but like you gotta let it be good at something. So I'm a little like sus on this, but we'll see. And Reflux is really good. I have a high opinion of it. I think it's hard, but I think the ceiling is really high, so plus 10 is fine. What kind of shocks me is like I know I'm kind of shocked they left the Stamper at 190. Like there's something egregious about Booyah, but Stamper paints so well that like when I play the Booyah Stamper, granted I play like a more paint style with it, but like I feel like I average like 6 to 8 Booyah, you know, without like explicitly trying to get them. So I'm kind of like they could have put it at 200. I think that would have been like fine. I'm not asking for a nerf necessarily, but like I'm more just confused by the lack of a nerf, if that makes sense. Because it's like one of the stronger weapons they added for the third kits, so I think it's kind of crazy to nerf Paintbrush and then look at 190 Stamper and be like, yeah, no, that's fine, that's whatever. Kind of funny. And the final thing we'll cover is the dev's kind of logic for this. We made balance changes based on changes observed after adding the Splat collection. Somebody was doing work with Paintbrush at like 1600 elo. I don't understand this at all. This is like when they nerfed Emperor to have a more expensive splashdown. I'm like, who is doing work? Who is doing work in B rank right now? For 3 types of main weapons, Splash, Gal, Umbrella, rather than simple upgrades or specification changes to make their individual characteristics stand out. And again, with 52, I get it, you want it to be a weapon that's, you know, maybe more ink hungry, but it's really good at getting multi-kills. I get that, but I don't love fighting 52, I don't love the design of 52, and I know it doesn't see a ton of play, but like that bullet velocity buff is going to be so annoying latency. That's annoying. I like the Splash and Umbrella one though. So that's for Splash, we extended the range to make it easier to take advantage of its characteristic where the accuracy is perfect, so you can actually take advantage of that and kind of laser people again. That's really fun, I like that. On the other hand, we decrease the ability to ink, make it more difficult to find ways that don't take advantage of accurate aim. Basically, if you're pain botting with it, they don't want to strictly give you a range buff and then just build more crabs, so that's basically the gist of it. I'll take more range on that because Splash is like very baby gun, so pretty cool. I'm good with this change. 52 increase the speed of shots, make it easier to fight by taking advantage of its high attack power. Yeah, basically, you want it to multi-kill, because multi-kill hype or something. We increase the amount of ink consumed to make it harder to find a way that maintains battle lines over time. So they want to buff the aspect, like, or the ability to multi-kill, but they don't necessarily want to make like vanilla 52 just like uncontestable and also a multi-kill gun, so fair enough. Again, I don't love it, but is what it is. For Brella, we expanded the area of its ink and make it easier to fight by taking advantage of its ability to defend from attacks, to keep opponents in check and maintain battle lines, or to use the canopy to prolong the durations of battles to cooperate with allies. Basically, by painting better, the weapon will A, output higher special, but B, more importantly, it'll like hold ground better and just make it more difficult for the opponent to approach it. And that's a really good quality of life buff, and you know that justifies to some degree a more expensive special cost, because doing all that at once would be a bit egregious. Whether it should be 210 on Jetpack or 200, personally I would have started with 200, because I don't think Jetpack is so strong that it needs to be 210, because it's a special that can't necessarily be like spanned back to back to back to back to back, because you have the entire duration of it plus a recoil. Granted, Brella is not so susceptible on the recoil because of the shield mechanic, so there's amazing synergy there, so I understand. But I'm biased, and I think Brella in this game has been categorically very weak, so I think plus 20 is a bit much, but that's my bias. Personally, I'm probably going to be a bit more interested in playing Recycled initially this patch, or at least on paper I'm a bit more excited by Recycled. And they said that these buffs to Brella make it easier to support allies by dealing small, reliable damage. Very intentional wording. They want this to be like a chip damage weapon as opposed to Recycled, or just like 90 damage, low quality fire explosion. While at the same time making it so that in one-on-one fights, players must get closer than before to fight enemies they can quickly defeat. Yeah, so they don't want you to two-shot at like mid-range, which is kind of like what Recycled's a bit better at, because Recycled has better like firepower and kill time on average because of like needing less hit to kill. So fair enough, they want Brella to be better at painting and holding space, and it is better at painting and holding space than Recycled on paper because of a much more durable shield, and debatably because of the paint output. Like Recycled paints a ton now from those buffs, but Brella might paint more depending on how much they buff these paint. The paint output, so fair enough. We adjust the number of points required for special weapons to ensure the special weapon frequency does not rise higher than necessary as a result of expanding the area yet. So are you gonna get 3k paint with Reg Brella and like 10 strikes? Yeah, probably, but that weapon's not really the interesting one. I think Sorrel is the one that's a bit more interesting to me, and obviously stronger. That's neat, because keep in mind, like, they did buff the range on Splash, so like in terms of ink strike competition, you're still talking about like, you know, like it's not a high core painter, but you still have Bucket, you still have like Neo Splash, you have Douser Custom. Like these are all like forms of competition that Brella probably still doesn't really compete against. So again, Sorrel is kind of the one I'm looking at. Interesting though. I'm glad that the Brella class is getting more attention. Pretty much all of them got buffed, because all buff on Cream 10. Major buff on normal Brella, and Recycled major buff, so very, very good pad for Brella on the whole. Rather main opens immediate changes to make them easier to use by shoring up their weaknesses. Yeah, because this gun kind of poop, this gun kind of poop, this gun kind of poop. It's like the polite way to say these weapons kind of suck. So we buff them to not be as horrible in terms of their weaknesses, which is good. They should be doing more of that. I'm all for raising the power level of the game Zip, easier to fight in combination with certain main weapons. Again, I think Stamper's like the main one that comes to mind, but again, that's like the best zip weapon. But yeah, it is useful for stuff like Luna potentially. Actually, Luna especially, honestly, again, as much as I don't like the zip caster Luna, because Luna's minimum damage is 50, so all you need to combo off the 45 is 55 damage, and that's like basically, it's really hard to not hit 55 with Luna because of how big that hitbox is. Like, it has to be like max range, like horrible spacing. So it'll be way better at comboing. Ink Vac, we made changes so when used in one-on-one scenarios, it is harder to be left open by quickly filling up the Ink Vac, but it's a greater effect when used well to block enemy shots. Yeah, because certain weapons could kind of overload the Ink Vac by themselves super quickly and then kind of kill, and like, yeah, it would end up in a trade a lot of the time. So I guess they just don't want it to be they want like more commitment to overload an Ink Vac as opposed to just one guy kind of just barreling at it. Ink Storm, by expanding the area of effect, made it easier to force opponents lying in wait in advantageous positions to move, so it's easier to flush areas and sort of force people to move. Easier for allies to fight within the area. I really like that rain buff. I think it just comes down to a rain distribution problem, but again, I think if we add more third kits and actually add more rain weapons than just another Splash-O-Matic, then this will be interesting. Again, I think a third Brella with rain would be probably one of the best things you could add. I think a rain Squelchy like in Splatoon 2 would be a fantastic addition. Things like that. I think those would really spice up the game and make like the special, like maybe like not meta defining per se, but like worth more consideration. Next update will focus on changes to the balance of battles. Interesting. But yeah, that covers my patch thoughts initially. I would say on the whole, what do I expect to change from like a meta POV? Not a ton, honestly. I don't think these buffs to like low tiers does much. I think the buff to splash range is actually kind of neat. I would need to compare the splash buffed range to other weapons such as Splat Dualie, because I believe Dualie, I don't remember if Dualie or Splash has the same range or like if Dualie slightly outranges Splat. I'm very curious in matchups like that, like a lot of the shorter range matchups. Intrigue me. I think Brella is interesting, but it really comes down to building comps around just high strike output or just like jetpack comps, and those like aren't the easiest weapons to build around. Like Recycle low-key good, but we need someone to actually commit to that. There was a Japanese player who hit 3,500 XP with Recycled last season before this kind of buff, so like, again, low-key potential weapon. I'll probably be grinding it a fair bit potentially, so that's interesting to me and catches my eye. I don't think the specials changed too much. I guess the Zipcaster buff is the quality of life for like Stamper. That's a big one because it's like one of the more notable weapons, so getting a buff on your special is nice. Ink Vac, I don't really expect to see much, to be quite honest, but I think some people will probably experiment, but I don't expect a lot of success. Special changes on these, I think Mini was already like, I think it should be a niche pick just on like good beacon maps. It just like makes it so you don't literally vomit 11 Zukas without trying. Yeah, I think these are like small, but within reason. Again, Stamper not being 200 is like the main one that I'm kind of just like raised eyebrow at. But I don't think that would like shatter the game or anything. But yeah, okay, that covers pretty much everything I want to say, unless I'm forgetting something. I'm recording this late at night right now, which is why I might sound tired. Again, subscribe to the channel if like tripping on my words. This is all in one take if that isn't obvious from like combination of like tripping over my own thoughts and occasional slurred speech because my brain is moving faster than I can physically vocalize things. Subscribe if you haven't already if you want to stay up to date with videos. We will be uploading more Recycled A. We'll upload more of that, and B will probably actually upload Vanilla Brella, which is surprising because I would never think I would have done that again after I spent 2 weeks 5-starring the Jetpack one back when that first dropped. So yeah, we'll see. This is exciting. I'm very, very excited. And yeah, stick around for Splatoon to come. You know, after the Silksong collective, whatever the word I said was earlier, I'm forgetting. I'm tired. Good night.